Welcome to this explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're unpacking one of the most complex, highly scrutinized, and, honestly, historically significant legal topics of our time. Today, we're taking a strictly analytical, radically balanced look at the International Criminal Court and its proceedings regarding Palestine. We're going to strip away all the noise, dive into the source data, and figure out the mechanics, the roadblocks, and the real global implications of international justice.
Right out of the gate, I want to hit you with a big question. Can international law actually hold powerful leaders accountable? Or is justice at this level kind of just inevitably influenced by politics, power, and global alliances? It's a massively high-stakes question, right? It perfectly captures that ultimate tension between theoretical justice and the gritty, messy reality of geopolitics. Keep that in the back of your mind as we go through the data today. Okay, here's our roadmap. We're covering 1. The highest criminal court. 2. The Palestine case. 3. Roadblocks to justice. 4. Differing global perspectives. And finally, 5. Implications and solutions.
Section 1. The highest criminal court. Understanding the ICC's mandate. So the most crucial point is right here in this definition. The International Criminal Court, which is based over in The Hague, prosecutes individuals. It does not, and this is key, it does not prosecute entire countries. That's a huge misconception we need to clear up right away. Unlike the International Court of Justice, which handles disputes between states, the ICC is entirely focused on individual criminal responsibility. The underlying idea is pretty simple. Literally, no single person should be above international law. And their mandate is actually highly specific. The ICC only has the legal authority to prosecute 4 distinct categories: genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. Basically, if an alleged act doesn't fit neatly into one of these 4 strictly defined legal buckets, the ICC just doesn't have jurisdiction. Section 2. The Palestine case. Let's zoom in on the investigation. All right, let's map out the procedural steps that led to where we are right now. First up, the Palestinian leadership formally accepted ICC jurisdiction. Following that, Palestine officially became a state party to the Rome Statute. That's the treaty that actually established the court. Once those specific legal thresholds were met, the ICC opened investigations into alleged crimes. And it's really important to note that last point. These investigations concern alleged actions by multiple parties involved in the conflict, not just one side. I want to pause here for a second, because this highlights a really fundamental distinction. The court's role is exclusively to investigate violations of international criminal law. That's it. It is not there to determine political solutions, draw borders, or negotiate peace treaties. International justice and diplomatic peace processes, they operate in completely separate lanes. Moving on to Section 3, Roadblocks to Justice, the limits of international law. Okay, let's talk about the obstacles in the field, starting with jurisdiction disputes. Because different governments and legal experts disagree on the recognition of Palestinian statehood for ICC purposes, the legal proceedings get complicated right out of the gate. Second, evidence collection. Investigators on the ground are dealing with destroyed infrastructure and active conflict zones, which makes it incredibly hard to safely access locations or preserve digital evidence. Third is political pressure. The ICC is heavily subjected to the diplomatic and geopolitical interests of powerful countries. And fourth, the accusation of double standards. Whether it's real or just perceived, the idea that the court investigates weaker states more aggressively while powerful countries face less accountability, well, that severely impacts the court's credibility. But honestly, perhaps the biggest hurdle of all is this surprising fact. The ICC has 0 police force. Absolutely none. They rely 100% on the cooperation of member states to actually go out and arrest suspects. So if a government simply refuses to cooperate, investigations stall. Justice can literally be delayed for years simply because the court has no physical mechanism to enforce its own warrants. It's wild when you think about it. Section 4. Differing global perspectives. Getting a 360-degree view. Now, what's really interesting here is how this debate is framed globally. From the Palestinian perspective, the ICC is viewed as a beacon of hope. For many victims, it represents a path to accountability for civilian suffering, displacement, and alleged violations, ensuring their voices are finally heard on a global stage. Conversely, the Israeli perspective argues that their own national institutions are fully capable of investigating alleged misconduct internally. They also raise significant concerns regarding the harsh realities of security during armed conflict, as well as firmly disputing the ICC's jurisdiction over the territories involved. We also see a fascinating contrast when we look at third-party observers. Human rights organizations are actively demanding accountability wherever credible evidence exists, heavily emphasizing that investigations must be applied equally to all parties involved in the conflict. Legal scholars, on the other hand, are intensely focused on the strict boundaries of the law, emphasizing over and over that criminal responsibility is strictly individual, not collective. In fact, to provide a stabilizing anchor in what is obviously a highly volatile public debate, I want to share this quote derived from the source material. International law does not assign guilt to entire populations, religions, or ethnic groups. Only individuals can be prosecuted. That right there is the foundational mechanic of the court, and keeping that front of mind really helps cut through a lot of the emotional rhetoric we often see in media coverage.
Section 5. Implications and Solutions. The Global Ripple Effect. So why does all of this matter? The short answer is the entire world is watching. The legal precedents established in this case are going to have a massive global ripple effect. The outcomes here will directly influence future standards for civilian protection and military accountability. It's going to test the very rules of warfare and international humanitarian law. Ultimately, how this case is handled will determine global confidence in international institutions. Make no mistake, today's legal precedent will absolutely shape how tomorrow's conflicts are governed.
So, what are the actual systemic solutions to those roadblocks we discussed earlier? Our source data proposes a few key ones. Let's walk through them. First, by utilizing modern tech, think satellite imagery and digital forensics, we get stronger, verifiable evidence systems that completely bypass the physical dangers of conflict zones. Second, by ensuring the equal application of international law, regardless of a country's military strength or alliances, the court builds much-needed global trust. Third, by increasing member state cooperation, we achieve much faster investigations and vastly reduced delays. And finally, by strengthening domestic institutions, national courts can complement and support international justice, handling cases internally when they are willing and able to do so. Ultimately, when we synthesize all of this information, a few universal core priorities emerge for the future of international justice. First and foremost, protecting civilians during armed conflict. Second, respecting international law globally. Third, pursuing fair, objective legal accountability. And fourth, supporting victims. Because justice isn't just about what happens inside a courtroom. It's about medical care, legal assistance, psychological support, and ultimately, restoring human dignity. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to chew on. Can international courts actually deliver justice in politically sensitive conflicts as they are currently designed? Or do they need major systemic reforms to be truly effective? The ICC is humanity's wildly ambitious attempts to replace impunity with accountability, but its success relies entirely on global cooperation. I want you to think critically about the mechanics and limitations we've explored today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep engaging with the facts.